Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. I'm excited about today's show, folks. I got the pleasure of reading this incredible book this past weekend, and I tell you, I had great weather for it. I sat out on the front porch. I had my little chipmunks out there. We were having a great time out on the front porch, and I got to read this book, Fatal Intrusion, this past weekend by two wonderful authors, Jeffreydeaver and Isabella Maldonado. And I'll tell you, normally we're a true crime show, but occasionally we dive into fiction. And I love diving into a good story, a good crime story. What we're going to talk about today has a little bit of it all. And we'll talk with Jeffrey and Isabella about the story that they've concocted here that kind of takes you not only to the edge of your seat, but has one foot, I should say, most fiction stories, you kind of have that little bit of, I don't want to say unbelievability, but it has that little bit of, you go, well, it's a good story, but it doesn't have that authenticity to it. The story that Jeffrey and Isabella have put together with Fatal Intrusion sticks, and it has that real feel to it. And what I loved about Fatal Intrusion is it really came out of the headlines, and it hits you right between the eyes, and it starts fast and it keeps going throughout the entire book. It's a thrilling book, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. It's one of those reads for the fall that I tell you, you really can curl up, you can read this book, and you're going to have a wonderful time with it. I really do guarantee that. Let me tell you about our guest today, and then we'll bring him on the big program. Jeffreydeaver is award-winning #1 international and New York Times bestselling author of the Lincoln Rhyme, Coulter Shaw, and Catherine Dance series, among many others. Jeffrey's work includes 47 novels, 100 short stories, and a nonfiction law book. His books have sold in 150 countries and translated into 25 languages. He's a former journalist, folk singer, and attorney. He was born outside Chicago and has a Bachelor of Journalism degree from the University of Missouri and a law degree from Fordham University. He was recently named a Grand Master of Mystery Writers of America, whose ranks include Agatha Christie, Elmore Leonard, and Mickey Spillane. Isabella Maldonado is the award-winning and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the Nina Guerrera, Daniela Vega, and Veranda Cruz series. Her books are published in 24 languages. Isabella wore a gun and badge in real life before turning to crime writing. A graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico and the first Latina to attain the rank of captain in her police department, she retired as the commander of special investigations and forensics. During more than 2 decades on the force, her assignments included hostage negotiator, department spokesperson, and precinct commander. She uses her law enforcement background to bring a realistic edge to her writing. Let's welcome into True Crime Tuesday, Jeffreydeaver and Isabella Maldonado. Folks, welcome into True Crime Tuesday. Appreciate having you today.
Well, thank you, Jim. Good to be here.
It is great to be here.
I want to start out today. First of all, this book, I've got to commend you both because, like I mentioned in the beginning, and it wasn't meant to be a derogatory thing, but a lot of true crime fiction starts off with, it means to be authentic. It really does mean to be authentic. And I think this is really a tip of the hat to the partnership between the two of you, the real life experience that you bring in, Isabella, and the genius of you, Jeffrey, and bringing that partnership together and putting it on the page. And I want to start off by getting a little bit from each of you. And I want to start with you, Isabella, and ask, when you bring real life experience into something like this, how difficult is it for you, Isabella, to sit down and put stuff on the page without crossing certain lines?
It is definitely a challenge when you're trying to write a thriller, which is what Jeff and I both write. We write high octane, high speed thrillers. And because of that, and we want to keep a fast pace, it can be a challenge when you want to keep it real and authentic because I know how long an investigation really takes.
Mm-hmm.
And it really takes a long time. And I know how long, it takes to follow a lead, and, forensics needs to be examined and all kinds of things. And we have to compress that because it's boring. And so you have to cut all that boring stuff out. And so for that reason, it's a big challenge to figure out what you can really do to make it still work.
On the flip side of that, Jeffrey, what is it that you need to look for without getting into, like Isabella was saying, without getting into the rigmarole or the day-to-day stuff? What juicy parts are you looking for? I know you're very experienced at what you do, but how do you get into it without getting too Hollywood?
Sure. Well, you said something in the introduction, Tim, that's very important, and I appreciate it. Quite a compliment. You said we told a good story. Mm-hmm. And those two words, good story, are our foundation, because a story, I mean, you can define it many ways, but Isabella touched on it, that we write thrillers, and that is a story of fiction that asks the question and raises the question in the reader's mind with great frequency: what is going to happen? Not what happened. You mentioned Agatha Christie. Of course, your viewers and listeners will know she wrote classic Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Who killed the mayor in the den with the candlestick? And those are wonderful, fun stories, but we don't do that. We are, if the expression is pedal to the metal, foot to the floor, whatever it is, we're novelists, but we really make roller coasters. That's what this book really is. And we want somebody to read the book in one sitting, if possible. Mm-hmm. And we've already heard, because the book has been out, technically it's just releasing presently, but it's been out in some circumstances with other readers, and they say they read it in one sitting, a day and a half, something like that. And so what our job is, and what I look for in particular, is I tend to, I would say, overwrite at the beginning. I put in a lot of stuff to set the scene because I picture it. I'm very fortunate. I can picture a scene in my head. Out it comes. I can touch type 120 words a minute, close my eyes, and just bang, out comes the scene. By the way, word of advice: make sure your fingers are on the right keys if you're going to do that, if you're not going to look, because I've had like codes that even Dan Brown couldn't figure out. Make sure that works. And then, so out comes the story. Then you trim, and trim. And then you sit back and say, okay, I'm a reader. Does this work for me? I'm not Jeff. I'm not co-writing with Isabella. I am a reader. Does this work? And if it, is going to raise a question, if the reader is going to say, oh, give me a break, it's too digressive, out it goes. It's got to move, and move.
Jeffrey, and reading this book, it does set up very much so cinematically. I mean, when I read it, I do see a movie, all the way from the first chapter to the very end chapter. And what's interesting is you tell the story very much from first person perspectives. You get inside the character's head, you give us what they're thinking, but you're giving us a perspective that it's very intelligent. I'm trying to form words here, Jeffrey. They're hard. Words is hard today. My audience knows I've got a bit of COVID brain going on here. But I'm, our antagonist here in this story, and you've actually got a double-headed antagonist here in a way. But the main antagonist, the killer in this book, has an interesting motive, and we'll get down to it here in a bit and start to talk a little bit about the plot of the book. But in his motive, you find a way to, or the thing that drives him, you give him an interesting identity, and in doing so, that interesting identity is what really, I guess what I'm trying to say here, Jeffrey, is that the interesting identity fuels him to a point where, most villains are a little two-dimensional, and they're on the verge of three-dimensional. Dennison, who's the villain here, becomes three-dimensional. You make him so well-rounded that I don't want to say you're not rooting for him. He's very despicable. But at the same time, you're intrigued. You're very intrigued by him.
Well, maybe I'll let Isabella address that because Dennison is, and of course, if I hesitate, well, I have some brain fog too from COVID as well. And if I hesitate, part of it is that there are so many twists and surprises in the book. I very carefully don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll let Isabella talk a little bit about Dennison because he was largely her creation. And I will say as an aside, when she had come up with him, I said, I knew this is a woman I want to work with because that is a really sick and twisted character and right up my alley. So I knew we had that bond in common. So, I mean, you want to say a word or two about our crazy killer, Isabella?
It's perfect. Whenever I write villains of any kind, I always keep in mind something that I learned on the job in actually working with them, which is that no one, no matter how despicable they are, ever their minds won't allow them to hate themselves. So they always find a way to justify what they do. And I like to say that every villain is the hero of their own story. So they feel like they have justifiable reasons for doing what they do. And you tap into that. That's something I had to learn to do on the job. If you're ever going to get anyone to confess to you, despite what you may have seen on some older, television shows or whatever, you do not hit them with a New York City phone book. No, if you want them to relate to you, and one of the ways you do that is that you tap into what their thought process is. Learning to do that helped me to create villains that people find fascinating and interesting and very three-dimensional and multi-layered, because that is totally how it works, and that's how readers connect.
With this particular villain, and I have to tip my cap to you, Isabella. There's more than just the typical villain in any particular novel. You may find one or two factors. Typical villain, probably is abused, probably is angry at the world, wants to lash out at the world, finds a vehicle to do so, and in one way or another runs across our hero and has some sort of interaction with them, finds a bias against them, they're off and running, right? And that's how we set up the story. But the way this was put together is just kind of genius, because there's no way to really justify why this guy does what he does. And like I said, we'll get into it here in a bit. And I think probably after the break, we'll start talking about the motive, the motive of Dennison and why he does what he does, because it's extremely fascinating as to why he does what he does, and why he picks what he picks, because it's so. And I'm wondering if that's actually based off of a real case that you had.
It's really more of an amalgamation, and Jeff is being humble because he very much fleshed out, the villain piece and had sort of the concept of kind of what to call, kind of what the villain calls his inner motivation and how to reveal him, which was such a clever idea. And that one was absolutely Jeff trying to, come up with in a unique and original way. Because the other thing is, you don't want to write the cliche mustache twisting baddie. Yeah. And this is far from that.
And, readers come to a work of fiction with certain expectations. And I say this because I was a nerd when I was a kid. They always put me, those of you who play sports, softball or baseball, they always put me in right field where I could do the least damage. That was the player who got the ball the least often. But I love books and love movies, and I read from a very early age, and I was a very discerning reader. And at a younger age, I was maybe a little too generous because there's a lot of garbage written. I'm sorry, there always has been.
Yeah.
And just because it's published doesn't mean it was written with the author's goal to connect with you and give you a truly emotional experience. And over the years, I learned that's what one has to do. So on every level in Fatal Intrusion, we bring that emotional engagement in. And there's the core story, and we can talk about the plot a bit, of Dennison up against our two heroes, Carmen Sanchez and Jake Heron, as they try to track him down, and he tries to track them down. Well, there's that, but then there's what I call, with affection, the soap opera element, and that's a story between Carmen and her sister, who've been estranged, and that's a very emotional, heart-tugging thing. And then there's a geopolitical, that makes it sound a little too grand, but then there's like a social element too, and that has to do with the role of the internet nowadays. And that in itself is an emotional trick. So, the villain has to kind of, I guess, shoulder his burden along with those other issues as we move through these intersecting subplots, again, like a roller coaster or a train ride. And we put him through the ringer. He had quite a job to do. But that means the readers need an authentic element to the book. When I teach my course in writing, I have what I call a give me a break standard. And I tell my students, anytime you're a reader, read something like a cell phone battery has died at a convenient moment. Give me a break. You can't do that. And so we filtered the book through the give me a break standard. And that Dennison was one of the things that we were very careful that no reader was going to say, oh, give me a break. He's a snidely whiplash, or he's stupid, does stupid things. He needed to be on his game.
There's something interesting here, Jeffrey, with the book that there's always a level of, it seems like with stories, there's a level of predictability. Like a reader can say, okay, I think I know where this is going. Like as you start to progress through a story, right? So villain's going to go A, B, C, D, and I think I know where he's going next. The one thing or even our hero is, you think you know where a relationship is going, like say between our cop and Jake, right? You think you know where their relationship is going, right? Or how they form their partnership or how their story goes. The one thing that's refreshing about this book, nothing is as it seems. Nothing progresses as it goes. The story has no predictability. You can't say how Dennison's story progresses. You can't say that this is the typical, villain's origin story. Like I can predict this from A, B, C, D. It doesn't go in that order. It's A, D, B, C, right? It's the pieces don't go the typical way a villain is bred.
The result of 4-hour conversations between Isabella and myself, going back and forth and saying, readers are really smart. What can we do to trick them in a fair way and turn the tables?
Yeah, and I mean, even you think how our heroes meet, and you think how they're going to form this partnership, and you think how it's going to progress, and even how they meet is a surprise. I mean, it's just there's so much in here that's just so rich, and you go, huh? There's so much in here that is a surprise and a shock, and I again, is it part of the collaborative process? Is this? And I guess I want to ask Isabella, was it because of the back and forth between you and Jeffrey that these ideas were sprung? Was it part of a wellspring, or was it because you were looking for something so different?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, the thing is, we both already have established ourselves as writers who put twists in and surprises in. So we both already have that going for us. And so when we got together, when we were collaborating, Jeff was talking about these, like sometimes we would have 4-hour phone calls to try to get it together. And we would work out these plot problems of, well, this is what I think the reader is going to be expecting right now. Or if there was a plot hole, usually for me, if I were going to spot a problem, it would be with a police procedure. And I'd be like, ew, that won't work. And then we'd have to work our way around it, or Jeff would spot, just another issue with the plot of, well, we can ramp up the tension over here doing this. And it was this interactive thing of, it was very synergistic and we both really had fun. That's the thing. And I hope that comes across on the page, is that we just enjoyed ourselves a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, I would look forward to the whole process. And we can, if you like, we can talk about the genesis of the idea and how Fatal Intrusion came about. But I will just echo what Isabella was saying, that I would look forward to our conversations. And, in the same way that I guess we could say like an engineer who's designing a new airplane, and she looks at this, this like a blueprint, a very rough blueprint of the first edition of an airplane, or however, I don't know how it's done. And then she would get this excitement about, wow, this is going to be something new. And she'd work with fellow engineers, and they'd kick ideas around, and slowly, the process would come together. But it was great, just great fun. And we had we can talk about this in a little bit more depth later, but working together, we decided it was a good combination, because we both write the same kind of book, as Isabella was saying. That's a thriller, a third-person, close point of view. That is, chapters in somebody else's point of view, as you pointed out earlier, Tim. We do have lots of twists and turns and surprises. The books take place over a short period of time. So right away, we were in the same ballpark as far as the type of book we went. And then we just decided, well, we're going to sit down, we'll do an outline. And then after that, we started to pick chapters. But we had rule number one, if you're going to write with somebody, zero ego zone. We handed the chapters we'd written to the other person with the understanding and even the hope that they would frankly tear them apart. And, in a nice way, of course. I have, Isabel, aren't we kind of nice people? We're kind of friendly, fun people.
Sure.
Nothing, yes. We're not mean to anybody. So we're kind of naturally that way. And then, the book became a much better book for that, now to the point where people cannot tell who wrote what. And in fact, we can't even tell who wrote what sometimes.
No, it's very much a unified voice throughout the book. Before we go to break, Jeffrey, I'm wondering, you said you wanted to talk about the origins of Fatal Intrusion and how that came about. Tell us a little bit about how this book started and how you and Isabella got together and decided that this story needed to come about.
Sure. Just very briefly, we met at a writers' conference about 5-6 years ago in Chicago, and we happened to be in the green room. That's the ready room before we did our presentations. And Gillian Flynn happened to be there, and as often she wrote Gone Girl and other wonderful books. And as often happens when writers get together, they get really silly. And there was not even alcohol involved. We were just getting silly. And we decided, that there had never been a book like The Godfather, Mario Puzo's book, involving infants. And why could there not be a baby Godfather? And we just had fun kicking that idea around. All the three of us, we're going to write it together. And, there's a reason why there has been no baby Godfather book, because it's a terrible idea. But we Isabella and I found that we had the same sensibility about storytelling. And then a few years after that, we met at another conference, and we kind of kicked the idea around of, why not try it? Why not give it a shot? And we got our agents together, and we this is kind of a long process, and each of us write other things. Of course, I write the Coulter Shaw books. That's the basis for the Tracker CBS TV show, and Isabella writes her series as well. And so we thought, well, maybe we'll do this other thing, this thing as well, a joint book. Fine, let's kick it around, and we wrote a couple sample chapters for the publisher, Thomas and Mercer, a wonderful publisher, and did a rough synopsis. And then when they said, okay, let's go, we did the outline, spent a month and a half or a month on that. We did a very long outline. And then bang, out came the book that we were describing earlier, that process.
That's amazing. Again, folks, when we come back, we're going to get into the plot of the book. We're going to talk about Carmen Sanchez, Jake Heron. We're going to talk about Dennison, the killer, and the motivations behind why he does what he does. I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as I can. I'm excited about this book. This book is amazing. I've got a copy of it right here, Fatal Intrusion, Jeffrey Deaver and Isabella Maldonado. They've put together an amazing book. Again, folks, two sittings for me. It wasn't one sitting. It was two sittings for me to get through it, but an amazing book. And it's definitely one that you're going to put on your fall reading list, especially I know in our listening audience here, in our watching audience here, we do it's True Crime Tuesday, but we do some fiction here as well. Lots of good fiction reading here. Again, Thomas and Mercer, as Jeffrey mentioned, is the publisher. We have a link in the description of this program so you can get this book. And again, I encourage you to order it during the break. When we come back, we'll talk about the characters in this book, the rich characters in this book, the motivations behind these characters, and are there real life ties behind these characters, and where do these characters come from? We'll talk a little bit about the plot of the book. And again, folks, I can't recommend this book highly enough. It is such an entertaining book, and this thing zigs when it should zag, it zags when it should zig, and you cannot predict in a million years where this book goes. So again, Fatal Intrusion, click the link during the break. When we come back, more with Jeffrey and Isabella, and we'll tell you more about Fatal Intrusion when we come back on True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. This book right here, Fatal Intrusion, Jeffrey Deaver and Isabella Maldonado. Wonderful book. Amazing book. 2 reads. I got through it in 2 reads. Of course, I haven't told Jeffrey and Isabella yet, but I have these trained chipmunks that I have out in my front yard that I spend an amazing amount of time with. We sat out there together, read the book. I mean, the chipmunks don't read, gang. I'll just tell you. But if they could, they would have enjoyed it as well. You have some incredibly rich characters in this book. I want to start with Carmen Sanchez, the lead character, lead detective, works for the Department of Homeland Security in the investigations department. Now, Isabella, I want to deflect this to you. Former FBI agent working for Department of Homeland Security. We find out in the book why, but why? What's the motivation for putting her in the Department of Homeland Security? Can you tell our audience?
It was actually, and Jeff and I talked about this quite a bit. We knew we wanted to have someone who was a law enforcement professional involved in the investigation, as well as someone who was not. And so we kicked it around quite a bit. We discussed various things. At one point we, thought about, should it be an FBI agent? I'm like, there's a lot of that out there. And then, should it be, we discussed U.S. Marshals. And I had to tell Jeff, unfortunately, it's not as sexy as it sounds. And you don't get involved in as many things, in U.S. Marshals. It's kind of very specific, and the same thing with Secret Service. And, there's lots of different federal investigative agencies. then, it's kind of hit upon Homeland. They're huge, and it turns out that they have, it's a big umbrella organization, and there's lots of things under DHS. And one of the things that they have is this huge investigative arm called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. And they have like over 11,000 employees, and they're all over the world. So we love the freedom of she could potentially go anywhere. And then and then HSI is so huge. They investigate, we wanted someone who could investigate a wide variety of different kinds of crimes. And so we put her in the beginning of the story. She's in their national security division, which is another subsection. I mean, this is typical of the federal government. It's like Russian nesting dolls of different things and the alphabet soup of agencies. But that's where we decided we wanted to start her. And then, I think we ended up having her involved in other things too. Okay. I don't know how much to give away, but so.
No more than you have to. No more than
that.
That's right. I found it intriguing that she starts in that division, because it first of all, I wasn't even aware that division existed.
Yes. Well, a lot of people don't, and we kind of use that to our advantage, because we can kind of, take some liberties. But I will say this, I actually got a piece of fan mail, Gmail, obviously, but it was from a lady, a female agent, who is right now, she's going through the academy training for HSI. And she said, I'm in the academy, and she's there right now. And she's like, I'm telling everyone around me to read this book. It's so cool. Someone's writing about HSI, and we're all excited about it. And I thought that's really awesome. I think she's going to try to come to our launch event, which would be awesome. I said, yes, we'd love to meet you.
Yeah, most definitely. The other thing I'd never heard of before, explain to me what it is that Jake Heron does. He's a professor, I know that, but what exactly is his title again?
Sure. Jake Heron was the civilian individual whom Carmen Sanchez teams up with, and they have a past about which we won't say anything now. And he was a black hat hacker. Those are the people who hack when they're not supposed to. But now his black hat hacking was to break into the accounts of CEOs who were hiding money and maybe had, like abusive pictures where they'd beat their girlfriends or their wives up or something like that. And he'd post that publicly. And then he went over to the good side, and he became a penetration tester. And this is a great job. I mean, I wouldn't mind it myself, although I don't have the talent for the computer skills. And they are hired by companies and government organizations to try to break into computer servers and then physical facilities to see if there's if the security is high enough. But that's what pays the rent. What his mission in life is to be an intrusionist. And people say, well, Jeff, did you make that up? And the answer is yes, but it sounds neat. And so what he does is he teaches courses and then lectures the public, does like TED Talks about the dangers of intrusion, that we have to be careful about this. And he analyzes all of history in terms of intrusion. Wars are intrusion. Domestic abuse is intrusion. You marry someone, you love them, you have a certain amount of life together, but then when someone crosses that barrier and certainly hurts you or insults you, that's intrusion. And he tells his listeners that you have to prepare against that, prepare defenses against that. And it's, he's kind of a crank, kind of a social engineering crank kind of guy, but he has a good motive. And he is just the kind of person with his extreme computer skills that Carmen needs in this case with Dennison, because there is a computer motif in the story about which we can say a few things, and he's the one who can kind of get into places where she needs to find out where these crimes are going and find clues to solve the question of where Dennison is and what he's up to.
There's a brilliant bit of dialogue between Carmen and Jake where he's explaining the difference or the opposite of what intrusion is. And I'm trying to remember what it is. He says they're speaking, they're at Carmen's place. And she asks, well, what's the opposite of intrusion? And do you remember what it is?
I don't actually remember the term itself. A, brain fog. B, we are dense in the second book now.
Okay. Okay.
Clearly, it's going to be a series. And yes, but basically it's like acceptance. Isabella, do you remember?
I can't remember. It'll occur to me at midnight tonight.
I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick.
But I do remember that part of the book where they're like, what's the opposite of intrusion?
Yeah.
I do remember they had that conversation, but I can't remember what it was.
It's a brilliant piece of dialogue because it's at a point where, I mean, you're talking about history between not only Carmen and her sister, but you're also talking about, you've titled the book brilliantly along with themes in the book and all that other stuff that people will have to read the book to find out. But when you talk about the word intrusion and you talk about how invasive it is and everything about this book is invasive. You talk about murder and intrusion. You talk about hacking and intrusion. You talk about just how invasive a lot of the themes of this book is. And then you talk about, well, what's the opposite? Carmen asks, what's the opposite?
If you care, that's why I'm not looking at either of you. I actually have the book up now and I have found it if you want me just to.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Briefly. Okay. There are two types that are the opposite of intrusion. And one is that when you connect with someone in a positive way. In other words, a loving couple comes together and their lives blend, and that's called an alliance. And that's the positive side, or the positive aspect that's opposite. So, you work for a company, you work for people. And let me minimize that. Okay. Oh, there we are. We're all back now. And you work for somebody and they step into your life and you step into their life. And, Isabella and I, we had a very positive experience. So I would call that an alliance. That's what Jake Heron would say. Mm-hmm. I have heard stories, no names being mentioned, where there were co-authors who were attempting to write a book together, and it was intrusion, and there were a lot of dissension and a lot of anger. But no, I mean, we've had an alliance, and that's the good side of it. So forgive my little. You could see my eyes were going elsewhere, but the miracle of modern computers, I could find it, track it down, and search for it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, because it's a brilliant bit of dialogue, and there's a second one there too that just means you're indifferent, and I don't remember what
indifferent exactly. That was the negative side, and that actually has to do with if somebody intrudes in your life, that's a bad thing. It's a forceful together. Alliance is a forceful, loving, positive coming together, and then there's indifference, and that's kind of heartbreaking because it can be the end of an alliance when somebody just is not intruding. There's no alliance. They just don't care about you. Yeah. But
it was a brilliant observation by Jake. But it kind of hits you where you live when you read it. When you think about, when you break down human interaction into those three categories, when you think about how we affect each other, run into each other on a daily basis, that when you think about, well, essentially that's it. We
talked about that for a long time, trying to come up with something that would, resonate with readers, because we wanted them to. Again, have I said it how many times? It's a roller coaster, bang. And also it's a magic show, all the illusion, the misdirection and so forth. And big surprise ending followed by a big surprise ending. We have multiple surprise endings because readers are really smart and they're going to figure out a lot of the twists in the book, but we had to put a few extra in just to make sure we tried to trick as many people as we could. But we want readers, when they close this page, we want them to fall in love with Jake and Carmen and Eric Williamson, their boss, and other characters, but also to think about things because we deal with important issues of the internet hesitating here, but on the online world, parents' relationship with their kids or lack of relationship when it comes to the online world and the evil that can happen there. And maybe they think a little bit about, online bullying or whatever.
Now, with Carmen, I mean, Carmen's a relatively complex character as well. I mean, she did do a stint in the FBI before she went to Homeland. And she's in Homeland now. She enjoys her job, correct? But she's Isabella. Can you kind of pick it up from there and tell us where she's at in this book, because she's going through a bit of a rough time, isn't she?
Yes, she and her sister, both of their parents died earlier. A few years back. And so she and her sister have been kind of estranged ever since the death of their father. And we do get into that in this book as well. It's kind of funny because I can imagine as people are listening to this conversation that we're having, they're probably like, what? How can they pack one more thing in there? But we do. And it fits though, and it does. Jake Heron has his complicated backstory, and we were going to put more of it in book 1, but we're saving it for book 2, and then we're working on it right now. But in book 1, we started the process of dealing with Carmen's. And I think that is part of what makes these characters fleshed out, and you do care about them because of what happens. But as Jeff was saying, the plot is extremely complicated, and it is its own way like Russian nesting dolls of plots within plots within plots within plots. But you can make the most complicated story situation that you want, but if you do not care about the characters, it doesn't matter. No one's going to read it.
Right. So when the book opens up, Carmen's sister is attacked. And she's attacked by who we eventually find out is our main antagonist in the book, who is Dennison, this killer. But thanks to some training that she got from Carmen, her sister, she survives.
Yes.
And she survives with a swift kick to the inside or outside of Dennison's knee.
The outside. Yeah. That's the common peroneal nerve.
Yeah.
Peroneal strike. It is actually something that I learned at the police academy. Couldn't resist using it.
It's a nice tip, by the way, for those of you who are trying to survive an attack, and it's very detailed. That particular scene in the book, if you're trying to survive something like that, and so Selena, who's Carmen's sister, manages to not just get away, but she manages to fight the guy off, which is shocking to Dennison, who's not used to having a fighting victim.
Right. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that scene and why go that direction? Why? Because in most books, I think that would have been the tragic character that would have sparked our hero to look for revenge / vengeance would be a dead relative, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Again, we wanted to thwart expectations. And, that scene was something that we rewrote many, many times to get it just right. There were many iterations of it. And so I think that what you're seeing is the result of a lot of work.
And let me say, too, it's a crime book. There is a loss of life. Here's Dennison doing his thing. And that's suitably ambiguous, but it's homicidal. And then Jake and Carmen playing this chess game to try to stop him. trying to outthink him. He outthinks them. They outthink him from time to time. So there's crime. There's not that much actual carnage. There's not a huge body count. We both feel that death is a very big deal, and kind of a truism, but it's has huge ripple effects. Many people's lives are affected. They're made sad by it. So we minimized that, kept the suspense going, like Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock in his movies didn't kill a lot of people, but the suspense was almost unbearable. But I will say, that inciting incident that you talk about, Tim, to get the hero going, John Wick. I'm sorry, we do not kill a single dog, not a single cat,
right.
Not a single chipmunk. You don't have to worry. We don't hurt children, and we don't do sexual violence. These books should be, to the extent murder can be fun, they should be fun. We want people not to feel, icky afterwards. My grandmother had a great story. She read a lot of books and watched a lot of movies, and she said, "Oh, I don't like that. The ending is like dirty dishwater." And I always kept that in mind, because you want the ending to be uplifting. Now it could be, there may be things in this book that propel us into the next book. That's perfectly valid. But there is justice, and there's no dirty dishwater, and so all the dogs and chipmunks survive. Just for the record.
Good. That's good to know. I'll let my little buddies in the front yard know that. They'll be happy. The other thing that's unusual too, and I'm not going to give away too much about this, but you break a lot of stereotypes, especially when it comes to our villain. There's a lot, and I want to talk a little bit about Dennison and the way he characteristically flows. He's just not your stereotypical sociopath, and he's without giving away too much about him. He does have his lust, which you call the push. And I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about that for a second. It seems like it develops a little bit later in life, right? It's not something like you talk about your stereotypical killer. They start by killing small animals in the woods, when they're young. You hear about most serial killers. He didn't start that way. Can we talk a little bit about his upbringing a little bit? Or how much you're willing to give away about his upbringing?
Isabella, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, he's going to take, okay, all right.
I'll fill in too, but I've been working on bad guy number 2, Tim.
Yeah.
All day.
Exactly.
So he's kind of in my mind, but go ahead, because things are coming back to me now, like a certain doctor and so forth. But why don't you start? And I'll jump in then.
Yeah, I think it's okay to say, he has an affinity with spiders. And I think this is something that, like, all you have to do is just even look at the reviews online. And we're very blessed, and we're very fortunate. There are already thousands of reviews online for this book. And it's gotten an average of over 4 out of 5 stars from thousands of people. So there's a lot of words already being said about it. And everybody's talking about the spider issue.
Okay.
And that he's got a spider tattoo. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things we had to do is kind of like, where did this affinity with spiders come from? And that does come from his childhood. He did have some, trauma and situations in his childhood. And I guess I feel comfortable in saying that there was a time when he felt like spiders were his only friends, and he overly identified with them and became obsessed with them, studied them, learned all kinds of things about them. And, he sort of built a mindset around that.
Okay.
And we put a lot of research in there. And I will say, too, that no spiders were killed during the writing of this book.
That's
and,
right.
Do I have a lot of affection for spiders? I don't, but they don't particularly. I don't have a phobia of them. But we did a lot of research, and there's a certain humanity and brilliance about spiders. For instance, there's a particular species in which once the little baby spiders are born, the father, or a male, I don't know whether it's the father, takes care of them. He raises them, which I found quite interesting. Then there's a spider who, when he or she is in peril, shoots little tentacles of the Spider-Man web up, and makes like a little parachute, and the wind carries them away from danger. Mm-hmm. And so, Dennison has learned a lot about survival from them. And so the readers or your listeners out there who think spiders ick, there is definitely a humanity about spiders and a fascination because they just happen to be smaller and frankly have 8 legs. But aside from that, they're a lot like us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're brilliant creatures. I mean, there's in all the different genomes. What I found impressive about the book too is how deep you went into the research of spiders and different types of spiders and what they actually, how they break down. I mean, it was fascinating. Anybody who doesn't know much about spiders will get their education by reading the book. That's for sure. That's for sure. I'm wondering how deep I can go with Dennison here and about the villain in the book. Because he doesn't go at it by himself. I mean, is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is revealed fairly early. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's unusual in itself too. Most serial killers go at it alone. And the fact that he takes on partners is unusual.
Well, we wanted the book to have contemporary resonance. Now, there have been serial killers around for a long time. I mean, we have accounts of serial killers in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. It's this, sociopathic condition that is not unique to the 21st century or the 20th century by any means. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer. But we wanted it to have a contemporary resonance, and in that sense, that there's an online element. And I don't think it's giving away too much to say that there are groups of primarily young men who are online a lot and lost in the world of the internet, where the fact of living in that world sometimes 10, 12, 18 hours a day, often living in their parents' basement and losing touch with the real world, give them a skewed sense of reality and certainly morality. Team that up with a man who is a true sociopath, and you have a very, very bad combination where you've got the whole internet opens up, the dark side of the internet opens up, and let's just say it doesn't end well for some people.
Jeffrey, have we become more dangerous as a society as a result of technology?
No, I don't think so. There are, I think Isabella can speak to this better than I can, having been in law enforcement, but my feeling is that, no, there's let's say 1.6% of the population is sociopathic and homicidally intrigued. I think that's probably always been true. But what has happened is that the internet has made it easier to communicate and easier to find victims. I don't think it makes people more deadly. I did a book a few years ago, Roadside Crosses, about the video game world, and then the Never Game video game world, which was based the basis for the TV show, CBS TV show Tracker. And I did a lot of research on it. And no, video games, Grand Theft Auto does not make somebody violent. No, Doom, the Red Dead Redemption, kind of a serial killer Old West book, doesn't make people violent. But I mean, it's an indicator. If somebody is playing these games all the time, that may be an indicator, so parents could look out for that. But no, I don't think it's made us more dangerous. It's facilitated, though, the people who are dangerous, help them out.
Isabella, have you found in your experience in law enforcement that it is impossible for a victim to stay free from a stalker or killer based on technology now?
Oh, you mean to hide from someone who
Yeah.
wants to find them? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
It is very difficult. It is, I guess I wouldn't say impossible, but I would say so difficult that their life would be remarkably challenged by trying to do it. I mean, there is a way, if you need to, you can actually change your social security number. A lot of people don't know that, but you can. And you can you can change your name, you can change your face, you can, change your location. There's a lot of things you can change, but it's so difficult not to have them eventually track you down. You'd almost have to continually be moving in order to stay ahead of it. And then what kind of life are you living at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. It just, there's so many different scenarios that the two of you bring up in this book that make me wonder, in today's modern society, whether you be the hunter or the hunted, if you can truly rest, if you had to get away, if you had to live a peaceful life, and you were being sought after.
I mean, one thing, Tim, is that our job is to scare the socks off our readers. That's what we exist for.
Sure.
And that raising all the questions in the book. Oh no, will the character, our main characters, they survive. Obviously, we're working on the second book. They survive, but there's always like the fifth crewman on the Enterprise, that guy who beamed down. And he wasn't on last week's show, and he won't be on next week's show because the Klingons are going to turn him into vapor. But we create those characters that you want to care about, and you do care about, and that you imperil them, and then people are on the edge of their seat. And technology has made our job of imperiling them a lot easier. It's also made our job a lot harder because, how many books have you read where if the cell phone were working or they hit 911, the book would be over in the third chapter. But there has to be these series of coincidences that you cannot have. That's a give me a break moment. And so it has made our job a bit more difficult, but it has given us the great opportunity to, create these scenarios in which our heroes and those fifth crewmen are imperiled constantly.
Well, I just, Jeffrey, it as I was reading this book, being a Minnesotan, you've heard this from Governor Jesse Ventura many, many times, and that was, I spend six months of the year living in the Baja. I'm off the grid in the Baja, right? But you say to yourself, well, can you really live 6 months out of the year off the grid? And I think to myself, that's got to be nearly impossible.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
No,
it's tough. Actually, we address some of this in early in the book. It's actually the very first chapter where you meet Carmen Sanchez, and we are introducing some of what we're discussing now. And when she is having a phone conversation with her boss at toward the end of that scene, they actually have a conversation about how the internet has brought people together and they sort of self-radicalize. And we actually do bring that out. I mean, again, Jeff and I, we have a lot of these rich conversations with each other about all of our observations that we've made and various things in our lives, and how we bring them into the story, and we want to address them in a certain way. And that is something that we did want to address, is that the way that the algorithms work now, you get this interesting sort of idea or notion, and the next thing you know, you're getting a landslide of information that is all in that one arena, to the point that becomes your entire world. And the next thing you know, you've been radicalized, and it's sort of done it to yourself, but without even realizing it. And we discuss that.
That's a very interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you get online, you fall down rabbit holes,
Very much so. And that's something that we see in law enforcement all the time. And especially with, terrorism and things like that, we would be on the lookout for that, of, situations where people are starting to sort of congregate virtually and then sometimes in person and whatever. But it's like, how did they even meet? Well, that's how. And so, again, it was just, and it was funny because, her boss, Eric Williamson, the supervisory special agent, SSA Williamson, he kind of at one point sort of pines for the days when, I remember when the bad guys just wanted money,
Yeah.
and we kind of made a little bit of a lightness about that, because now it's so complex. And it's really scary as, from someone in law enforcement, if you're dealing with someone who has a cause, they're very hard. I was a hostage negotiator at one point in my career. Actually, I spent quite a bit of my career doing that. But they're hard to negotiate with because you can't really break through. You can't reason with them. So because they've sort of taken leave of reason. So and in law enforcement, that's a big challenge. And so we wanted to kind of address that. And it's just yet another layer that we put in there. Again, I'm sure your readers are going, what exactly is this book about? It's about everything, but it's cohesive when you read it.
It's very cohesive. And we've skirted around a lot of the story because I'll tell you, the fact of the matter is, folks, we can get very spoilerish if we get into the story.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to.
And you can start putting a lot together, and you can, again, speaking of rabbit holes, you could really unveil a lot of the story just by starting to mention certain plot points.
Well, my niece sent me a little video of course, a baby ghost in pajamas, one of the cutest things ever. Mm-hmm. And we went back and forth, YouTube kind of thing. We went back and forth on it, or maybe it was Facebook. I don't remember. Okay, guess what's in my feed from now on? Baby goats in pajamas, and that's the rabbit hole. And they really are cute. They're pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
But so it has a positive side too. But talk about time wasting, man, I could watch those guys forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. What was the question I was going to ask Isabella? Oh, you were talking about.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, Jeffrey. You were. What were we just talking about? We were talking about. PSYOPs. That's what I was going to ask. We were talking about rabbit holes and falling into rabbit holes. And the ghost in pajamas thing is perfect, Jeffrey. I was going to ask when you're talking about falling into these little rabbit holes online and people getting caught up in things and actually brainwashing yourself almost. Is it because the propaganda and the PSYOPs are that powerful, or is it because we become more gullible? Which is it?
I think we're pretty much the same. I don't think that, as human beings, we have changed that much, our brain structure, personalities, motivations, and whatever. So I think it's more that it's more sophisticated what's going on out there. I really believe that. And that's number one. And number two, I think it's happening at a younger age. If you think about it, you go back a few decades before, the internet was a thing, and you were kind of raised in your community for the most part, and you had the values of that community, and you had to kind of grow up and then leave before you were exposed to a lot of other thoughts. And by that point, your prefrontal cortex had already fully developed because you were 25 years old, which is, for a male, that's generally how long it takes to have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So you're able to make judgments a lot better. And you also have a little bit more life experience under your belt. Now, a 5-year-old can be exposed to all kinds of information, and they have the neuroplasticity of their brains is such that they are having trouble distinguishing what's going on. And, they're being inculcated at an extremely early age. And so I think that those are the two things that do make a difference now with what you're seeing.
Wow. It's interesting that the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, I think that's how it's pronounced, has proposed legislation to ban smartphones in schools. I don't know through what age, presumably through K through 12, whatever it is. Not phones, not all phones, but smartphones, so that the kids cannot do the text. Oh, look, oh, she got this outfit. I don't look as good as her, or she's lost X pounds. I don't look that good. Oh no, I feel terrible. And then, playing games and getting lost, playing the violent games and so forth, and also just being distracted from class. But, you can have a phone where if there's an emergency, you can make a phone call, certainly, call 911 or call your parents, but even that's discouraged. But I think that's maybe a step in the right direction. Now, we don't preach in the book, but, we do expose some real situations that we have researched. And, again, you close the book. I want maybe there's something to be a bit memorable about the story that remains after they walk away from Jake and Carmen.
No, you're absolutely right, Jeffrey. Yeah, yeah, there's something to it. There's definitely something to it. Before we leave people today, we mentioned off air, I think either Isabella or Jeffrey or both of you had a dumb crime, stupid criminal type story you wanted to tell.
Well, I've got one. Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Sure. This is a true story. Mm-hmm. A detective was called to investigate a homicide, and a man had been breaking into a car and had been stabbed in the chest, stabbed in the heart with a screwdriver, and died. And of course, Isabella could tell you better than I could, but I do know from my lawyer days that, when it comes to a property offense, you can't kill somebody. I mean, you can only kill somebody in self-defense or defense of others, and even then under only certain circumstances. And so the detective thought, oh no, somebody was seeing his car was stolen. He had an altercation and he stabbed the guy with a screwdriver and ran off. Well, of course, I write the Lincoln Rhyme series on the Bone Collector, so I have a bit of experience with forensics. And the forensic team comes up and says, well, we figured out what happened. And the detective says, well, what was that? He said he was frustrated. He couldn't get the airbag, and airbags are very expensive. They're an important thing to steal, out of the steering wheel. So he was pounding on it with the screwdriver, with the butt of the screwdriver. The airbag went off, and he stabbed himself in the chest.
Oh my gosh!
It's natural selection at work,
Oh, that's a Darwin Award winner if I've ever heard of one.
Oh. Yeah, and for me, actually, I'm a couple of years back, I was posting. On my Instagram, I called it Foiled Again Friday. Mm-hmm. And so every Friday I was doing one of these stories. And I remember a couple of them that I find I still just can't believe how ridiculous this is. So one guy decided he was going to get out of, he was supposed to go to court to be sentenced. He'd already been convicted. And so he was supposed to be, going for his sentencing, and he was going to have to be remanded. And so he got his friend, obviously also a rocket scientist. And so his friend went to the court on his behalf to present a death certificate saying, I'm sorry, my friend is deceased. So therefore, in their minds, everything would be dropped against him and all that. And he would never have to go to jail and all that. And he gave the death certificate, and the judge looks at it and words are misspelled on the death certificate, on the it was clearly fake. I think the word certificate was misspelled, and
No.
it was the governor's name was wrong. That was in the signature anyway. So the upshot of it was, not only did they send the deputies out to get the guy and find him, but then his friend also was charged with a felony and got to join him in federal prison.
Oh my!
And then one more real short one is just take a sentence is, and this is, everyone jokes about Florida man. It's a Florida one because this could only happen in Florida. And it was a real Florida case. And the police pulled over a guy on the interstate on 95. And sure enough, he was smuggling. But what he was smuggling was caimans, and he had them down his pants.
No. Oh my!
Somehow, I mean, he got bitten and whatnot, but somehow he managed to survive. Because I guess the caiman got all upset when the guy was jumping around. Yeah. Anyway, but he survived, and in my stories, nobody died, but but yeah, there was, there was some amazing stories. I think that, two guys broke into, and I think this is in West Virginia, broke into a house, and they thought that they got a hold of some cocaine, and they were snorting it. And it turns out that it was the person's dog's ashes.
Oh,
yes. They snorted cremation ashes from an animal. Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, another thing, and you can cut as many of these as you want, of course. But I lived in Manhattan for a long time, and there's a case down in Greenwich Village, and you could smell a certain substance as people smoking down there, and there was a buy and bust, and the guy who was selling the pot to the undercover officer knew what was coming, so he had the baggie full of oregano, and so it looked real. The officer bought it. Bang, he was busted. They go to court, and I don't know whether it was at the arraignment or whatever happened. The guy rather smugly said, "Well, sir, I was just selling him herbs," and the judge was so upset about this. He called the prosecutor over and said, "Okay, adjust the charges." And they charged him with misrepresentation of a sale. In other words, selling a product under false circumstances. And it was
nice.
Because the money involved, that took it over the 2,500 felony versus misdemeanor. And so he got a felony charge for misrepresentation. And so sometimes you can be too smart for your own good, I suppose.
That's too good. That's too good.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, thank you both for adding that to the show today. That was wonderful.
Very fun.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
The book as well is wonderful. The book as well is wonderful. Fatal Intrusion. Jeffrey Deaver, Isabella Maldonado. I want to thank you both for being on the program and for putting out this wonderful book. It's by Thomas and Mercer. We have a link in the description of this program. So I would encourage you both, I encourage all of you to go out and get this book that both of them have put out. Yeah. Again, I did it in 2 sittings because you guys have put out, it's quite the book, my gosh, 429 pages.
Yeah.
But it's action-packed and it goes very quick.
It's a big one. Now, I will say this, that a lot of people have been asking, oh my gosh, we're in love with Carmen and Jake and we think they're great. Is there going to be another one? And so I will, close by saying absolutely yes. Jeff mentioned it earlier. We are hard at work on the sequel. It is called The Grief Artist.
Really?
It will be published in September and it is already up for pre-order.
It is.
Yes, there's already a link in pre-order, and you can pre-order it on Amazon, or you can pre-order it from Barnes & Noble or your favorite local bookstore or wherever you want. But yes, it's already available for pre-order, and it's called The Grief Artist.
All right.
So yes, there'll be another one.
So for those of you who get through Fatal Intrusion, and I expect you to get through it very quickly, The Grief Artist is already available for pre-order. Well, I know what I'm doing then. I know I'm going to get a hold of The Grief Artist because I can't wait to find out what happens next. So
it's going to be a doozy.
There you go. All right. Well, Jeffrey, Isabella, thank you so much for joining us today on True Crime Tuesday.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's time now for us to bring in Jessica Freeberg, and it's time for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time again, the time you're all looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And like I said last week, this week we'll be back to full strength, as we say in the hockey world. It's time now to bring in a co-hostess for this program, one that's been sorely missed. Not that we didn't have fun with Travis. We had a lot of fun with Travis, but we got to bring her back. She's intelligent. She's witty. She's funny. And I'll have you know, she's written exactly a lot more books than I have. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Jessica Freeberg. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, I'm so happy to be back.
We're happy to have you, darling. I'll just say that you've been sorely missed.
I missed you too. I miss seeing your face every week.
Aw, you're going to make me blush. You're going to make me blush. Tell everybody real quick about the amazing trip you had. And by the way, I got to say, you told me something off air that I'm very proud of you for. Tell people what you did on your trip.
Well, we moved my daughter back to college. She goes to USD in San Diego. And we had to drive out there this year because she wanted her car. So we made the long 2,050-mile road trip from Minnesota out to California. And I had one stop along the way that I was just determined to do, and that was Zion National Park and do some hiking out there. But I'm terrified of heights, Tim. I don't know if you know that about me, but I'm like super afraid of dying from falling.
Oh, no.
But I was like, we have to do this. It's so beautiful. It's like iconic. It's one of the most iconic national parks in the US. But I did a lot of research before we went out, as I do, and found out that it's also like the most deadly national park in the US. And the trails that we were planning to do, the one was actually the deadliest. Like the most people fall off the side of the trail because they're taking selfies and trying to get close to the edge. But it was a moderate trail, and I thought the girls could handle it. It was supposed to be really beautiful, but we did it, and nobody died. And
good.
I was only a little bit annoying.
You know, that reminds me of what's his name, David. The something 411. Why can't I think today?
Oh yes, I can't think of his last name either, but I love that series.
Pilates.
Yeah,
David Pilates. Yes. So you just bring back like PTSD from that whole series, from reading that, and here I'm thinking, Jess is going to end up in the paper. Listen to me, the old man, or on the internet. I've got COVID brain. It's going to be an interesting week. I'll tell you that much.
It's a thing. Yeah.
It's a thing. But yeah, I mean, you're conquering all these fears which, by the way, I admire you for, to go out there and just say, I'm going to conquer all these fears while we're out on vacation. Because really, vacation, you think time for rest. You go up to a cabin somewhere, you seclude yourself, you read a book, you do whatever, you sit by a fire, you maybe get a little schnockered. You don't do anything that's really, productive. You go out there, you conquer every fear in the world. Piece of cake.
Yeah, we got out to San Diego, and I said, now we have to go kayaking in the ocean with the sharks. There was a cave tour, and the cave tour guide said that we were in some of the most shark-infested waters in the world, and I'm afraid of drowning. I have a lot of fears. I don't know if you know that about me.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, we're kayaking out in the ocean. We're going to kayak with sharks. It was awesome, though. I mean, the fun thing about doing stuff like that with my kids is I can't really show my fear because I don't want them to be afraid. So you really have to like externally conquer your fear, like look like you're okay and cool with everything, which during hiking was a lot of me just looking down at my feet. Just don't look out. You don't realize how tall up in the air you are.
I think your son would tell you in the football world, they say nut up or shut up. But yeah. Wow. Holy cow. Man,
it was fun.
That's more than okay. That's more than enough trauma for one lifetime. But you packed it all into a vacation. You put it with a nice little bow. You wrapped it up. You put it on a shelf, and you're like, okay, ready to go back to the real world now.
Yep.
Jeez.
We survived, and we had fun. And I will say, we were in the car, my husband and I, with our 2 teenage daughters, for like 30 hours of driving. We broke it up into 3 days. But nobody bickered. It was just like this calm, peaceful, it was beautiful. I mean, I kind of worried, going with 2 teenage girls, you'd be like, oh, this could be bad. But it wasn't. It was really nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Merry Christmas to you, I guess, right? That doesn't happen too often either.
Yeah. And I listened to a little Darkness Radio on the road trip. I was listening to you and...
Yeah. And you were
keeping up on.
You were disappointed, weren't you? No, I'm kidding.
Not at all. You did sound sick, though. I was like, dang.
Yeah.
Poor Tim. That guy's gotten run over by the truck of COVID.
Yeah. I didn't let on to people how bad I was, but it was pretty bad for a while.
Sounded bad.
Yeah. But I got through it. I always do. Well, yeah. I'm the same kid who, I did shows 2 days after heart surgery. So not that I'm bragging, but there's no quit. So
yeah, I get that.
Yeah. That's the radio mentality. You just don't put the mic down at all. You just keep going. So
how you get stuff done.
That's how you get stuff done. That's right. That's how we pump out 156 or 159 shows a year, something like that. So that's how we get it done. So speaking of, let's get into Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today. By the way, we got a big week this week. Tomorrow, Supernatural News. I'll hint that we have a huge show on Thursday. I'll let you know more tomorrow. But we have an old friend stopping by, and we're going to be talking about dark hauntings, even demonic hauntings tomorrow.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're getting back to basics this week, even potentially next week too. I mean, I was telling people last week, Jess, that this month, a lot of publishers are releasing dark demonic haunting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a scary month. We'll put it that way. Normally you would think October with Halloween and everything, but everything starts coming out in September. So.
Yeah. I know my publishers always like to have my books come out the month before so that we can get some, momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff coming out this month. So let's start off Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals with this story. A woman stabbed to death by her Tinder date had her tongue cut out so she couldn't call for help.
What?
Yes, this one sent in by Tony. Tony sent in a few this week.
Tony never disappoints.
No, and Tony was on a bit of a morbid kick this week. I think you've been reading a few true crime novels this week, or books rather, not novels, or not novels if they're true. A female tourist allegedly stabbed to death by her Tinder lover on the tropical island of, is it Mauritius or Mauritius or Mauritius? Mauritius, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had her. I've never been there. I don't get to vacation in the Caribbean very often. I think it's Caribbean or it's in the Greek seas. I'm not sure. She had her tongue cut out so she could not call for help. A post-mortem examination revealed university lecturer Zalia Shamagulova, who's all of 29 years old, had multiple wounds to her chest. It was also found that her tongue and throat had been cut from her mutilated body, which was found naked in a shallow grave. Detained suspect, 29-year-old Puryaveer Singh Sunder, who is an IT engineer from, I believe is Mauritius, met the tourist via the dating app Tinder, according to Russian reports. Oh, okay, so it's over in Eastern Europe. That's where the island is.
Okay.
Yeah. He allegedly confessed to her killing, and explained how he had stabbed and mutilated the tourist, according to law enforcement sources. Detectives were still seeking to find the missing body parts and also her clothing, said local media outlets, that according to the Mirror. Despite this, a funeral ceremony was held for the tragic tourist before her body was returned to Russia. Detectives suspect the killer had intended to cut up her body, but in the event, buried it in a makeshift grave on the island. The suspect was reported to have led police to the grave in La Marie, which is a residential area. He confessed to the killing after her blood was found in his car and alleged that he had discovered she had been unfaithful to him. Being unfaithful to him and was a Tinder date. Talk about a little codependency going on.
That's a little weird.
Yeah, a little too much possessiveness going on. She was last seen wearing a white and blue dress on video, getting into a blue Toyota car. It was the last time she was seen alive, and she was reported missing by a female traveling companion. Her relatives in Russia received messages purportedly from her saying that she had decided to disappear and not to contact her. My guess is he wrote them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. One report said the suspect went to take the Russian woman sightseeing on the island, but in a fit of jealous rage, he pulled out a knife and brutally killed his lover before stripping her and burying her body. The woman had recently posted that on her holiday, she was catching happiness every day.
Oh, that's so sad.
I think that might have been written by him, too. She had been a torchbearer ahead of the Winter Olympics in Sochi in 2014. She was a university lecturer in the Urals and had been due to travel to Madagascar on September 1st. So quite the tragic story there. Our next story has to do with a woman's killing being unsolved for 44 years. Ironically, a cigarette butt led to the arrest. Yeah.
Little DNA?
Little DNA evidence there. You're right, Jess. DNA evidence from a cigarette butt has led to the arrest in the 1980 killing of a woman in Washington State. 65-year-old Kenneth Dwayne Kundert was arrested in Arkansas last week on a warrant accusing him in the murder of the death of 30-year-old Dorothy Dottie Maria Silzel, according to police in Kent, Washington. Silzel was found dead on February 26th of 1980 inside her home in Kent, about 30 minutes south of Seattle. According to Kent Police Chief Rafael Padilla, he said that in a Wednesday news conference last week. She died from strangling or suffocation and suffered a blow to her head, according to police. That's citing an autopsy report. She also had been sexually assaulted, according to court documents provided by prosecutors. Silzel was last seen 3 nights earlier, having left a pizza shop where she worked on the weekends to supplement her income as a full-time training supervisor for Boeing. Friends and colleagues requested a welfare check at Silzel's home after she had not reported to work at Boeing for 2 days, which was highly unusual. Although DNA technology was not advanced enough to identify a suspect at the time, DNA evidence was collected during the initial investigation, according to police. Investigators with the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab built a DNA profile from the evidence from an unknown man they called Individual A. In 2016, advancement in DNA technology allowed investigators to obtain a partial DNA profile from the victim's bathrobe at the crime scene that matched the DNA profile of Individual A. Investigators compared multiple DNA samples throughout the years to the partial DNA profile, but none matched Individual A. A breakthrough finally came through in 2022 when crime lab investigators used genetic genealogy to identify 11 possible suspects. Well, that's narrowing it down. The forensic method compares unidentified DNA to DNA that can be found in genealogical databases, potentially allowing researchers to find relatives of the unknown person. That, combined with other detective work, can help investigators identify potential suspects. The method has been used in recent years to crack some of the nation's coldest cases, including the arrest of the Golden State Killer in 2018. In the Washington case, investigators began collecting DNA samples from the potential suspects to compare to Individual A's DNA profile, according to Kent Police. 2 of the potential suspects were Kenneth Kundert and his brother, both living in Arkansas. In September of 2023, Kent detectives began to look into the brothers and were advised that they were both in custody for an unrelated assault. And from there, they narrowed it down to Kenneth. So there you go.
I love the DNA technology that we have now.
It's quite spectacular, you know. I mean, I can see where there might be some holes in there, where you know, defense attorneys could try to punch a hole in there, but it's very slim. You know,
yeah.
With DNA technology, it's very, very slim. That's for sure. Our next story is about a New Jersey woman mistakenly jailed for 2 weeks, and they're saying that she can't sue the U.S. Marshals who jailed her. This is an interesting story, Jess. A New Jersey woman who spent 2 weeks in jail in 2019 in a case of mistaken identity cannot sue the U.S. Marshals who arrested her. This according to a federal appellate court panel, and they ruled that this past week. Even though the officers arrested the wrong Judith Maureen Henry and sent her to the Essex County Jail in Newark before she was finally released, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a lower court ruling to say that the officers' actions were constitutionally valid because they were executing a lawful warrant. Therefore, the judges said the marshals are entitled to the legal prosecution of qualified immunity, which shields officers from actions taken in the course of enforcing the law. The judges also rejected the claims by Henry, who is black, that bias against her race and lower economic status led to her arrest. Writing for the court, Judge Thomas L. Ambrose said, "But we need not accept this bare conclusion," and she offers no other allegations to support it. The woman who the authorities were actually looking for had absconded from parole in Pennsylvania 26 years earlier, prompting the warrant for her arrest. Interesting.
Very.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have a problem with that or not. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of scary from our perspective that we could be arrested because we share the name with someone who's done something wrong.
Right. I mean, okay, so you have two people with the same name, right? Obviously, social security numbers are different. Birth dates may be different. There should be different identifying information that should be completely different from one another.
Yeah, I would think so.
Why aren't U.S. Marshals taking that into consideration? Why aren't they checking different identifiers and being a little more careful before they take somebody into custody? And the woman was jailed for 2 weeks. It's not like you can't do a better job of identifying and then letting her go before 2 weeks is
I would
up.
think, 48 hours maybe, but 2 weeks, that's a long time.
Yeah, a really long time, right? So, I don't know. Strange indeed. All right, Jess, this next story is going to surprise some people. TikTok trends are pretty popular. And a lot of people like to follow TikTok trends and like to think that, there's more than a hint of truth to it, especially when people are getting over on them, right? This latest one is a little alarming because we like to think we can get some free money off of TikTok trends.
Yeah, I like free money.
Yeah. So this TikTok trend exploits a Chase Bank glitch. Supposedly you can get a little bit of free money out of an ATM.
Oh.
But a lot of people are also discovering it's coming at a huge cost. Let me explain. A new TikTok trend has people posting their attempts to exploit a glitch in Chase Bank ATMs that offer infinite free money, but are quickly learning that a bank and its money are not so easily parted. Okay? Experts say the glitch videos look an awful lot like check fraud, one of the oldest scams in the book. Videos urging customers at the bank to take advantage of the glitch quickly took off online, prompting people to deposit fake checks for large sums of money. The glitch would credit some of the sham deposits to the customer's accounts before the checks cleared. All right? One video showed people lined up outside Chase locations in New York City, allegedly looking to take advantage of the viral glitch to get free money, according to one person on X. But Chase quickly fixed the bug and is clawing back any money doled out to people who didn't deserve it. A spokesperson for Chase Bank told the New York Post, consumers should be skeptical, and if something seems too good to be true, it likely is. We're aware of this incident, and it has been addressed. Regardless of what you see online, depositing a fraudulent check and withdrawing funds from your account is fraud, plain and simple, the spokesperson added. The person who took advantage of the glitch were soon reporting that their accounts were locked and hit with massive negative balances.
Haha.
Yeah, right. One user posted deductions labeled ATM deposit error totaling nearly $40,000.
Oh my gosh.
How do you think you're getting away with this?
And why do we have to be told that's fraud? That's so obviously stealing.
Do you think you're going to turn around to the bank and go, well, I didn't know?
TikTok said I could, Tim.
Oh, geez. I don't know how you think you get away with that. For a short window when the exploit seemed to work, clueless social media users were exuberant. Chase customers shared videos of themselves dancing with joy and throwing handfuls of bills into the air right outside a Chase Bank in Yonkers.
How can we be so stupid?
Right? One clip shows a joyful bunch cruising with their heads sticking out a car window and their chase cards in their mouths. All right, funny name alert. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Jim Wang, a financial educator, explained the trouble with the Chase Bank glitch mania and warned that those who take advantage of the issue will face serious consequences. So what people discovered over the last few days was that Chase was having problems with their ATMs. They were able to deposit checks and get the balances and were able to withdraw them, Wang said. Chase was pretty on top of it. Within a day, it was all fixed, and the people that were doing this were seeing big holds in their accounts or huge negative balances. Wang continued, in the case of this glitch, it was just check fraud. You're going to get in huge trouble if you do something like this. Wang reiterated that if a large amount of money shows up in your bank account as a result of a bank error, customers should tell their bank immediately. Just because money appears in your account doesn't mean it's literally yours, he said. If you spend it and are forced to pay it back, you're going to have to figure out a way to pay it back. Another expert and CEO of the Bloom Institute of Technology, Austin Allred, also took to social media to debunk the trend. So the Chase Unlimited Money glitch that went viral on TikTok was writing yourself a giant check, mobile depositing that check, then going to an ATM to withdraw cash before the check cleared. Literally just committing check fraud, he wrote.
Yeah, like the definition of check fraud.
Oh, yeah, that's just plain and simple check fraud. And I don't understand how people don't see that is check fraud.
It's actually scary to think that people don't understand how wrong that is. And they're just so confident in what they've just done. They're like posting videos about it and proud of themselves. It's crazy.
Well, then, again, you get over a certain amount and you're talking a felony.
Yeah.
You know? And there comes a point where, you know, an honest mistake is just an honest overdraft, and you can go to the bank and you can settle it and you can pay a fee and you're done. Right?
That happens.
Right. But when you get into $40,000, come on. The bank's not going to forgive that. They're going to press charges.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, social media.
Unbelievable. All right. Speaking of unbelievable, just flew to Michigan Paracon, came back. I had a good flight. In fact, I commend the people of Delta. Wonderful flight, even though there was only coffee and water service both ways. I mean, you know, but it was a short flight. So
no cookies? No.
Oh, no, we had we had the Biscoff cookies.
Okay, good.
Oh my gosh. No, there would have been hell to pay if there was no Biscoff. Let me tell you something right now. I can't live without my Biscoff cookies on Delta.
No, that's the only reason I fly.
That's right. But this particular flight, Jess, was something to behold. The passengers were beyond unruly on this flight.
Oh, no.
Now, we all have had our share of crying toddlers on flights. You have to have a certain amount of understanding. I mean, you just have to. Kids can't, they don't know how to, you know, their ears fill up with pressure. They don't know how to swallow. It's up to the parents to bring something to get them to, you know, unclog their ears. They're in this tin can that's flying through the air at 500, 700 miles an hour. They don't know what's going on. They can't move. They're told to sit, be patient. Kids aren't patient, right?
Oh,
so
no, they're not.
You need to plan for these things, folks. You know, they're not as patient as adults. Well, passengers on a plane locked a crying toddler in a bathroom. Yes. The airline said her grandma gave them permission.
What the heck?
Some people have lost their damn minds.
That's a bad grandma.
Right. 2 passengers aboard a Juneo Airlines flight from Guiyang in southwestern China to Shanghai on Saturday locked a crying toddler in an airplane bathroom. One of the passengers posted a video of the incident on Chinese social media. The video has since gone viral and generated intense backlash. Sixth Tone, an English language state-run Chinese media outlet, identified the woman who filmed the incident as Gu Tingting. How would you like to have that name?
I would love it, actually.
Gu Tingting?
Yeah.
We can change your name to Gu Tingting for the show.
I kind of want to.
Do you?
It's just fun to say.
Yeah, Gu Tingting. Yeah. I quite often during the show have to Gu Tingting. So I'm just saying that, Sounds
like a personal problem, Tim.
I hold it, though, or I wear my Depends, one or the other.
That's good.
Yeah.
As long as you have the adult diaper on, you're okay.
That's right. I do the NASA thing, and I just go in my adult diaper. So there you go. Where was I? Yes, Gu Tingting. Makes me want to Gu Tingting right now. Sixth Tone reported that in a caption for the now deleted video originally posted on Douyin, which is China's version of TikTok, Gu said the child's crying was so loud that passengers used tissues to try to block out the sound. Well, yeah, just deal with it, right? I mean, it's a kid.
They probably have little earplugs you can stick in, right? Don't you get those on the airplane?
Sure. Or the tissue in the ear works, or put your fingers in. I mean, or bring a noise canceling headset or something.
Meditate, go to your happy place. Figure it out,
That's
folks.
right. That's right. Meditate. You got it, Jess. Or just, I don't know, drink a lot. That'll work, right? I'm sure. The outlet said one of the women could be heard in the footage telling the wailing child they wouldn't let her out unless she stopped crying, as in out of the bathroom.
That's so sad.
The video has been met with fierce backlash in China. Some online comments accused Gu of bullying the child and lacking empathy. Well, of course. Other commenters expressed concern about the damage it might do to her psychologically. Some commenters shared screenshots of police reports they'd filed against the women. Sixth Tone reported that despite the outrage, the Guizhou Airport Public Security Bureau did not charge Gu or the other woman because the child's grandparents had to ask for assistance. I'll get that out sooner or later. I'm shocked. Junyao Airlines confirmed in a Weibo post on Monday that the incident had occurred. So no charges.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The post said the child's grandparents had consented to the strangers taking the child to the bathroom to educate her. The airline also said the grandmother waited at the restroom door throughout the incident. Business Insider was unable to reach Gu for comment. Gu Tingting. Maybe if she would have Gu Tingting before she hit the plane, she wouldn't be so owly, and she'd be able to deal with her own child.
She'd feel better. Yeah.
She'd feel better. Yes. She wouldn't be so owly herself.
You can't hold your ting ting.
No, you can't.
It's crabby.
Yeah, it makes you real crabby. Just saying. We'll move on here, Jess. We're going to Maine where, sometimes we all feel a little bloated. And sometimes we're just way overweight and we need to take a little weight off. Turns out that one Ford F750, I don't know if you've ever ridden in an F750 before, Jess.
I don't know if I have.
It's a big truck. It's a diesel. A overweight Ford 750 accidentally plunged through a historic wooden bridge in Maine.
Oh, no.
There were posted weight limits for this wooden bridge. It's a covered bridge in Maine.
Oh, no.
And this truck probably shouldn't have been on it. But it took the bridge anyway. To bad results.
Uh-oh.
Posted weight limits were possibly ignored as the driver drove straight through. I'm going to show you, Jess, a picture of what this looked like.
Oh my gosh, they fell right through the floor.
Right through the floor into the water below.
Dang, that's a bad day.
That is a bad day. That's a bad day for that there driver. Yeah, there's a reason why you don't take too much weight over those covered bridges because there's no road underneath those covered bridges.
You probably just sank right to the bottom.
Yeah. Well, you come from Iowa, right? You know about covered bridges.
Yeah, we've got some beautiful ones down in Madison County.
Yep. Once upon a time, Maine could claim that more than 120 covered bridges dotted its landscape. Well, last week the head count was 9. Now there's 8.5. That's because despite posted signs, the driver of an overweight vehicle decided to cross one, and he didn't make it. Not even halfway. Instead, the bridge bottomed out, sending the driver, truck, and cargo plummeting into the water below. Babb's Bridge in Gorham, Maine, has the oldest history of the state's remaining covered bridges, one that dates back to 1840.
Dang, he destroyed a piece of our history.
Yeah. The wooden bridge also has a weight limit of 3 tons. So imagine how heavy that truck was.
That is a big, big truck.
Yep. The wooden bridge also has a weight limit of 3 tons. The driver behind the wheel of a Ford F750 thought he could make it, but alas, those trucks can be over 9,000 pounds empty. And depending on what was in the bed, GVWR can be between 26,000 and 37,000 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and the driver was also hauling crushed gravel, according to the Gorham Police Department.
Oh, no.
That truck ain't coming out of the water.
Nope. Bye-bye.
No. Even if the vehicle were an older F-Series with 0 cargo, its weight would have still exceeded what the little old bridge could handle. The ability to read doesn't necessarily mean you understand the words. That's a nice line in the story. At least that's the guess of the writer of this article when the driver didn't change his route. Although there's no signs regarding weight limits placed on or near the bridge itself, there are no roadway signs. Large and unobstructed, the signs indicate the bridge's height, which is 10 feet, width, which is a single lane, and support, which is 3 tons max. They are placed along Hurricane Road at the last major intersection before arriving at the bridge crossing. Basically, there's no way to miss them. Based on the images, the bridge gave way almost immediately under the weight of the truck. The driver suffered minor injuries, but was able to exit the vehicle on his own. Luckily, no one else was hurt, considering the area is popular with swimmers and kayakers.
Wow.
Yeah.
He really could have hurt someone.
He could have. Babb's Bridge was originally built in the 1800s, and for more than a century, the wooden expanse had fulfilled its purpose of helping people cross the Presumpscot River. Boy, that's a mouthful. Unfortunately, vandals burned the bridge down in 1973. The state rebuilt an exact replica using historically accurate, locally sourced materials, which opened in 1973. Of course, now it needs to be partially rebuilt again. Isn't that something?
It's just silly. It's so dumb.
I can't believe this numbskull did it again. I mean, 50 years. The bridge has survived 50 years without an incident.
Without some goofy person just driving their giant truck and going through it.
Yep. The Maine Department of Transportation said repairs will not be completed until next spring because obtaining the needed lumber to maintain the bridge's accuracy will take several months. In the meantime, other repairs will take place while Babb's Bridge remains closed. Repair estimates have not been released, but the owner of the truck company has offered to pay for the help pay for the rebuild. Not pay it completely, but help. The incident itself remains under investigation by local authorities. So there you go. Even more disgusting still, Jess. This type of story really gets my goat. I don't know why, but it always does. And it has to do with little kids who put up a stand to raise money.
Oh, yeah.
And local authorities come and shut it down because some asshole calls them.
Yeah.
This time, town officials shut down a boy's ice cream stand.
Why?
But I give it to the townsfolk because fundraisers and death threats soon followed.
What? Death threat?
Yes.
Cannot wait.
Again, we get this story from Tony. I don't know why I'm stammering today. I think, again, it's the COVID brain. I apologize. Town officials shut down a boy's ice cream stand and fundraisers and death threats soon followed. We go to Norwood, Massachusetts, where some people still have a head on their shoulders. Bored and looking for something to do this summer, Danny Doherty hatched a plan to raise some money for his brother's hockey team by selling homemade ice cream.
Great idea.
Yeah, great idea, Danny. We like it. But a few days after setting up a stand and serving up vanilla, shaved chocolate, and fluffernutter, fluffernutter ice cream, Jess.
You had me at fluffernutter.
Right.
Yummy.
And he was going to do that for about 20 people. Danny's family received a letter from the Norwood Board of Health ordering it to shut down. Town officials had received a complaint and said that the 12-year-old scheme violated the Massachusetts Food Code, a state regulation. Come on.
Seriously.
Right.
He wasn't wearing his hairnet and his little gloves.
I guess. I was surprised and upset, he said of the letter that came August 5th. I don't understand because there are so many lemonade stands and they don't get shut down. Danny's mom, Nancy Doherty, who had encouraged her son to start the stand as long as he donated half the proceeds to charity, also was taken aback. Somebody complained. That was the most disappointing part for us, was that somebody thought it necessary to complain about a child's stand, she said. It seemed a little, crazy if you ask me. Rather than give up, Danny decided to give away the ice cream and accept donations for the Boston Bear Cubs, which is a team featuring players with physical and developmental disabilities, including his brother who's autistic.
Oh, and that's what he was raising the money for in the first place.
That's right. Now I want to punch somebody in the nuts.
I hope that person feels like just a complete jerk.
No, they don't.
They probably don't, though.
No, because they're assholes. That's when the neighborhood fundraiser blew up and became the talk of Norwood, which is a suburban town about an hour from Boston. Well, good for Norwood. That's what I'm saying. The first day they gave away the ice cream, supplies ran out in about 10 minutes and $1,000 was raised. The word began to spread about the fundraiser and Danny's clash with the town. Local media ran stories about the stand, prompting scores of local businesses to hold their own fundraisers for the hockey team. Among them was Furlong's Candies, which teamed up with Boston radio station WWBX-FM to hold a fundraiser in their parking lot. They raised $3,600 on a day when the line stretched out the door. There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Right. Danny was trying to do a good thing for his brother's team, and it's not just a regular hockey team, Nancy Thrasher, the store's co-owner, said. They need a lot more equipment. We were like, this is a perfect situation for us to get involved in. Thrasher said she understood why the stand had to be shut down, but she still felt bad. My heart broke for the kid. He was just trying to do good for his brother's team, she said. Town officials, meanwhile, said they received hate mail and death threats over the dispute. As they should.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they should have got a good shove it up your ass letter, is what they should have got. Which they suggested has been badly mischaracterized in the media. No, it hasn't. Because you assholes shut him down.
Yeah, it sounds pretty accurate. You shut the kid down.
He was looking for 20 people to buy his ice cream. 20 people and you shut him down. That was it. You blew it up into something it didn't have to be. They argued the family had sold their homemade ice cream before and even promoted it on social media. Well. The letter, officials said, was only sent after the town received several complaints. Now they're blowing it up into something it's not. And unsuccessfully tried to contact the family, something that the Dohertys dispute. We had to deal with staff who were upset that they were being threatened. Oh. People had gone online and found their addresses simply for sending a letter after having reached out to somebody and said, look, there's a violation here, said Tony Mizuko, who is Norwood's town manager. It's the first time in recent memory that the town has shut down an ice cream stand. Well, don't do it, he said, adding that Massachusetts law allows for things like lemonade stands and bake sales, but not homemade ice cream. Well, for charity, make the exception.
Exactly. What's the big deal?
Yeah. Mizuko said there was a legitimate health concern since homemade ice cream can be contaminated with listeria or other bacteria. Danny's situation is not altogether unusual. Youth everywhere have also seen their lemonade stands or pop-up bake sales shuttered, often for failing to have a business or health permit. Several states have responded by moving to lessen restrictions on such ventures. Nancy Doherty said it was distressing to hear the town employees had received threats. She said the family has never sold ice cream before, but acknowledged that Danny created an Instagram account to promote the stand. I'm not upset with the town for responding to a complaint, she said. I'm shocked someone else complained. This was a tiny operation. Us serving 20 friends, family, and neighbors isn't a public health action. That is someone complaining to be a complainer. For Danny, all the attention has been a little unnerving. There was so many people and they started chanting my name, he said of the fundraiser at Furlongs. He said I didn't like it, so I ran away. Oh, poor kid. All the attention was on me and I didn't like it, he said. In the end, about $20,000 was raised for the hockey team, which is good.
That's awesome.
That's a good amount. More than the amount the club spends in an entire year. The infusion of funds should ensure the club will be on sound financial footing for the next decade or more. Which that's an awesome ending, right? The community response was overwhelming and has overwhelmed us, said John Quill, the director and coach of the Boston Bear Cubs, as he accepted a check from an auto group at the Doherty's house. There are a lot of good people out there, Quill added. Danny inspired a lot of people to do good and to be kind and to help us out. So there you go. It has a good ending.
A happy ending.
Yeah. In the meantime, look out for nut shots over there at the at the local Norwood City Hall. Because you got a few coming. Just saying. I don't know. Got to be careful.
Protect your junk.
Yeah. Protect your junk. You got to be careful when you're being mean to kids. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
So I got to ask you, Jess, you, as an author, I'm sure in your day you've had a few overdue books yourself, right?
Oh, yes.
To the library? Yeah. I had a few in my day. In fact, I think I may have one or two still in my collection. I'm afraid to turn them in.
Yeah. You probably paid for them and bought them by now, I would think.
I've
got a few of those.
Although I have a story here that tells me that they may still be racking up money.
Ooh, uh-oh. We better go clean out our basements.
When I tell you how much the overdue fees are on this one book, you're probably going to think twice about turning it in.
Oh, no. I'm scared.
We're going to Virginia, where an overdue book is returned to a Virginia library after a stunning 50 years. This reminds me of the Seinfeld episode.
Yes.
Yeah. The library estimates the book would cost $1,774 in overdue fees.
What?
Yeah. $1,774.
I don't understand.
Right? Compounded.
Like my brain is like spasming right now.
Right. Compounded daily inflation. I don't know how you figure that.
Buy a new book.
Right. You can replace the book after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. You stop with the fees eventually, don't you?
I think so.
I would think so too. A library book that went missing for 50 years has finally been returned. The overdue book, borrowed in the early 1970s, reappeared decades after its due date at the Hopewell branch of the, is it Appomattox Regional Library in Hopewell, Virginia?
I like Appomattox.
Yeah, I do too, but I don't know.
Go with that.
I don't know if it's Appomattox or Appomattox. I don't know. Leaves of Grass by American poet Walt Whitman. It's a popular book. I don't know if you know that or not. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Was due back to the library on June 3rd, 1974. It's a little late. Skosh.
A little bit.
Yeah. We can guess that it was checked out 2 weeks prior on Monday, May 20th, 1974. In 1974, our library system was established. A library representative told Fox News Digital via email. A woman told a librarian she found the book while cleaning out her sister's home and brought it to the library. Good Samaritan, right? This is almost certainly the longest overdue book that we've ever had returned, said the library representative, who jumped for joy at the incoming late fee. I added that part, by the way. Yeah. If it wasn't for the old card catalog system, which included putting a reusable due date card in the pocket in the back of the book, we would have never known how long some items are checked out for. You remember that old card that went in the back?
Yes, that's so old school.
That is old school, isn't it? Gosh, I remember that card too. The Hopewell Library no longer charges overdue fines, by the way. Otherwise, this would have been racked up.
Thank goodness.
You ready for this? They said, if we'd still been charging fines at 10 cents a day, including holiday closings, the book would have accrued around $1,774 worth of fines, which we would not have collected, of course. They added it.
Yeah, that's good.
Sure they wouldn't. As they smile and winked. But they would have revoked the library card, I'm sure. Before this book return, the oldest overdue book was checked out in 2009.
Wow. This one definitely wins the award.
Yeah, it does. The book checked out 5 years ago was The Dilbert Future, Thriving on Stupidity in the 21st Century, which is a cartoon self-help and joke book.
Oh.
So Dilbert would have won. But now it's Walt Whitman.
Walt wins now.
So Walt Whitman, Dilbert. Walt Whitman, Dilbert. I mean, you're talking...
I feel like Walt Whitman wins every time.
You think? I mean, because they're both literary classics.
They are. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
Depending on your version of classics.
Yeah. Everyone enjoyed having the book returned. We think it was sweet of the woman for responsibly returning the item after all this time, said the library. Several of our employees were born and raised in this area, so they've had fun telling us what the library used to look like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, said the representative. Interesting. I just think
what a story.
$1,774 of overdue book fines is...
Yeah. As a mom of a kid who loses all of her books, I'm like, oh, I'm glad they don't charge fees anymore.
I had no idea they stopped.
They do. They still charge you if you don't return it, our library. So if you don't return it, you just have to pay for the cost of the book, which seems fair.
Really? My God. All right, sign up for our Not Safe for Work section of Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. If you're at work, it's time now to put in your earbuds so the boss doesn't hear or the people around you. If you're at home and the kids are listening, well, you probably have them locked up in the bathroom like that airplane. Or you can do that so that they don't hear this part of the program. We'll get to it in 5, 4, 3, 2, and here we go. We're going to start it off with a little ting-ting humor. That's right. We're talking about urine antics. That's how we start off.
It all comes back to the ting-ting.
It all comes back to the ting-ting. We'll start with a doctor that was busted for bizarre urine antics. Turns out that a 59-year-old internist doused his ex-office with gallons of the vile liquid.
Ew, disgusting.
Let me show you what a guy who douses his ex-office looks like. There he is right there, Jess.
Wow.
Yeah, that is Dr. Giovanni Balla. He's not bowling anymore. 59-year-old internist sold his Florida medical practice in 2022 to a fellow doctor. In recent months, Balla reportedly became upset over the business, with the purchaser, 32-year-old Dr. Dylan Dinesh, who runs affiliated health clinics out of Balla's former office in St. Petersburg. Court records do not reveal the nature of the business dispute. Investigators allege that Balla went to Dinesh's office on July 30th and soaked the front doors in gallons of fluid, which had the odor of urine. Ooh, how long do you think that was probably cooking for that it smelled that bad?
Oh, that's just disgusting.
Right? I mean, it probably had a little bit of a scent to it. On August 17th, Balla allegedly returned to the property and again unleashed, there's that word, a cascade of the rank-smelling liquid. Speaking of, I'm going to take a small time out, a small sidebar here.
Okay.
Have you seen the Saturday Night Live skit from this past season with Woody Harrelson about it's the Cologuard parody?
No, I don't think so.
No, where the Cologuard boxes come to life, where
No.
Woody's been smoking weed.
I'm going to have to Google it.
Oh my gosh, you have to. Cologuard parody Woody Harrelson on YouTube. And they all come to life and they're like, come on, Woody, unleash. And they're like, unleashing me. And he's like, no, ew, no. But they keep using the word unleash with him. And just that word itself is so hysterical that you wouldn't believe it.
Especially in this context.
Yeah. So read the word unleash and a cascade of the rank smelling liquid on this door is too much.
It's a great sentence.
I just think of Woody Harrelson in a Cologuard box saying, unleash. Unleashing me, Woody, unleash. On both occasions, cops say Bala and his vehicle were recorded by surveillance cameras. The urine-smelling liquid soaked into the front wooden doors, causing irreparable damage. Replacing the door will cost $1,500, according to an arrest affidavit, which reports that the medical practice suffered $6,000 in other losses related to the urine attacks.
Wow, that's crazy.
It turns
I
out
didn't know urine could be so destructive.
Turns out PP is a lethal weapon. Bala was arrested and charged with a felony count of criminal mischief. He was released from custody after posting a $5,000 cash bond. According to state records, Bala's medical license, which expires in January, is active and lists his primary practice address as his $1.7 million waterfront home in Gulfport, where it's easy to unleash that pee-pee right there in the water. This is just right there. You don't have to do it.
Just go stand out the front door.
Yeah, just stand out the front door and go right there in the water. Don't do it on his front door, by the way. It'll cost $1,500.
No, that'll ruin it.
Yeah, $1,500 worth of damage. In 2003, Bala was formally reprimanded by the Board of Medicine, fined $10,000 and ordered to perform 100 hours of community service after he improperly prescribed medication to an online client he never gave a physical exam to, ordered tests for, or provided an adequate diagnosis, among other standard of care violations. At the time, Bala was employed by virtualmedicalgroup.com, which is a telemedicine outfit which appears to be defunct. So there you go. Our next story, I'm going to say the word properly, Jess.
Okay.
The word of this city properly, which our chat room seems to like to admonish me for. But they can't stop me. They can only hope to contain me. The only one who can stop me here is you, Jess.
I'm not going to stop you.
Okay. The last story we dealt with pee-pee. This one we deal with poo-poo. And I know I'm saying the correct medical terms here. Those not watching on video couldn't see my reaction to that. Police are looking for a person who allegedly has been pooping on a porch in old Louisville. Louisville.
Nailed it.
Because the man on the statue is King Louis, not King Wu. All right, I'm off my soapbox. The Louisville Metro Police Department is looking for someone who is accused of repeatedly pooping on the same person's porch. That's right, kids.
Why are you going to do that?
Well, because when you got to go, you got to go. Just saying. The person has allegedly been pooping on a porch in old Louisville, which, by the way, is my favorite bluegrass song. I don't know if you've ever heard it before. Pooping on the porch in old Louisville. Do, 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 do. You ever heard that song before? It's wonderful.
I'm going to learn it on my guitar. We can take it on the road.
That's right. Yeah. I'll grab my guitar. You grab yours. We'll duet together. Pooping on the porch in old Louisville. Do, 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 do. I'm playing my air guitar. Nobody can see it because I've got it right
I can see it.
Can you see it? Okay, great.
I just see your arms moving.
Yeah, okay.
I can tell you're really getting after it.
I am. I really am. There are at least 2 reports filed from the person who lives in the area. 2 whole reports. Another was taken by an officer Wednesday. It's unknown at this time what the suspect looks like. I can tell you this much. He looks like this. That's his backside.
As he walks away.
There's a video. I'm thinking about posting this in the
That's so funny. If you recognize this backside.
Yeah, if you recognize this ass, call the police. I am going to post this in the description of the program just so people can watch the video.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Let's solve a crime.
Let's solve a crime. Check this ass out. See if you recognize it. Roderick Dowell lives across the street and saw it happen. He saw the poop perpetrator.
The poop perpetrator.
The poopy perpetrator. Oh, Louisville, man, you got to see some. You see everything out here, Dowell said. I just happened to be outside and a white guy walked up. He was looking around. He looked like he was going into the apartment. He looked at the window, looked out, and he started crapping. That's a direct quote. Just started crapping, Jess. This ever happened in your neighborhood?
No, thank goodness. I don't know what I would do if I walked out on my front porch and found poop.
I'll tell you what would happen if I saw somebody in the middle of it. I have both a softball bat and a golf club. And they can decide which way the poop is going to be hit back up into the anus. Because I got a nasty swing with either one. So they can either get a one wood or a DiMarzio, one or the other.
Take your pick.
Yep. It happened early Tuesday morning. The guy was wearing a T-shirt, gray basketball shorts, and socks on the front porch. No shoes. So he's got to take his shoes off to be comfortable crapping. Just saying. Yeah. He appears to look around, do his business, walk away, and then come back and do it again. And the second time he rang the doorbell.
What? He wanted to be caught.
Evidently, he wanted to let him know he was done. Literally started crapping like boom, and he got up, walked off, and went back down the street, Dowell said. The homeowner did not want to speak with WDRB on camera, but shared video with us, is what it says here in the... Here's the funniest part of the article. Anyone with information is asked to call the department's anonymous crime tip line or crap tip line at 502-574-5673. Tips can also be submitted anonymously online through the LMPD crime tip portal, which is available online. Tell you what, I'm going to post this story in the description of this show so you can catch a crapper.
Crapping criminal.
You can catch the crapping criminal. That's right. All right. I believe, no, we have 2 stories left. Not safe for work today. A husband admits, this one I believe came from Tony as well. A husband admits adding cocaine and Molly to his wife's Coke in hopes that he would marry her daughter.
Wow, that's a really twisted story.
It just keeps getting better, Jess. An Indiana man admitted to putting a poisonous off-white powdery substance into his wife's Coca-Cola so he could kill her and marry her daughter, according to state court records. My God. 71-year-old Alfred Roof, one or the other, RUF, pleaded guilty to aggravated battery in July to trying to poison his wife. He was sentenced on Monday to 4 years in prison and 5 years of probation, according to Indiana court records. Roof told officers in January of 2022 that he had been spiking his wife's drinks over the last few months with a substance given to him by his wife's daughter, according to a probable cause affidavit. Roof's wife, who called the Wayne County Sheriff's Department and told them about her husband's actions, gave the responding deputy a pill bottle that contained the unknown powdery substance. She also gave the deputy a Coca-Cola aluminum can that she drank and cut open. At the bottom of the can was an off-white residue.
Not good. That's a bad sign.
Coke in your Coke. Another deputy told Roof's wife, or took Roof's wife to a hospital where she tested positive for having MDMA, cocaine, and benzos in her blood and urine, according to an affidavit. She denied using the drugs. Once the state changed the nature of the offense, he took responsibility for what he did wrong, according to John Lawrence Tompkins, who's Roof's defense attorney. He told that to USA Today. That's the appropriate thing to do. When deputies interviewed the then 69-year-old Roof at the sheriff's office in January of 2022, he told them that he was sexually involved with his wife's then 31-year-old daughter from a previous marriage.
Whoa.
Yeah. Let me see. 69, 31. What's the age difference there? 38 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Good mathin'.
He's still old enough to be her dad. Interesting. Well, he is her dad.
Yeah.
Technically.
And she was agreeable to this setup.
He was like, she was like, she wanted a sugar daddy and he brought the Coke. See what he did?
I like sugar.
Yeah. That's a bad joke.
I think they're both addictive, so.
Yeah, they are. So he then told them he was sexually involved with his wife's 31-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. He then explained that his wife's daughter gave him the pill bottle with the powdery substance in September of 2021, instructed him to put it in her mother's drink. Roof was the only person charged in connection with the crimes. Roof told the deputies that the drug cocktail would make his wife go to sleep for 13 hours or so. Oh, only 13 hours.
That's a long time. I'd like to go to sleep for 13 hours. Could someone spike my Coke? I'm tired.
You're tired. You like a good nap.
Yeah.
That's dangerously close to a permanent nap. He also confessed that he put the drugs in the drink to eventually kill her. The daughter and her female friend would call and tell Roof to give the drugs to his wife. He told deputies. Alfred would then sprinkle some of the white powder in his wife's Coca-Cola can and then wait for her to fall asleep. The women would then come to Alfred's residence and put more of an unknown substance in Roof's wife's drink and have her drink it. Once Roof's wife was asleep, her daughter and her daughter's friend would put on a show for Roof. Oh boy, it gets saucy there.
Wow.
Yeah, baby.
Menage a trois.
Right? The show involved the two women putting on Roof's wife's negligees. It just became unsexy.
This is all creepy.
Yeah, and then performing sex acts on each other. It's kind of like AARP After Dark, if you know what I mean. Roof also told authorities that, well, he was having sex with his wife's daughter or her friend. Oh, he had to pick. I guess he didn't have enough energy for both.
No, not at that age.
No. One of the women would steal some of his wife's personal items. Oh, there's also a little petty larceny going on. He also admitted to paying the women to perform sex acts. So he wasn't getting it for free. He was getting the drugs for free, but he wasn't getting the sex for free. There's a premium for that. The victim's daughter told Roof she wanted to get mom out of the picture when she found out they were selling their home. Oh, so there's more money involved. The victim's daughter also mentioned a life insurance policy to Roof that her mother had in place. Roof confirmed to deputies that he gave his wife the powdery substance 12 times. There were 12 naps involved here, Jess.
That is crazy.
Yeah, from September through December of 2021. He also told deputies the victim's daughter said she and Roof would get married after they took care of the wife. Although Roof acknowledged that he knew the drugs would eventually kill his wife, he also said he gave her the substance just so her daughter and her daughter's friend could come over and have sex with him. Oh, nice guy. Roof came clean to his wife because he felt bad, he told deputies, per the affidavit. He also detailed taking his wife to the hospital 6 times due to the symptoms she was having from the drug cocktail, including bad headaches, drowsiness, diarrhea, and lightheadedness. So it doesn't come without a hangover, Jess.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad one.
Yeah. So I don't know that you want that cocktail.
No, I'll pass.
Yeah.
I'll just take a little melatonin and go to bed.
Yes, melatonin would probably be better. Yeah. Not as long of a nap, but probably a better one.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, a California man's sex life with his wife was ruined following a painful encounter in a Las Vegas hotel room. A lawsuit was soon to follow.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yes. Now let's tell you how the pain came. A wealthy California man claims his sex life has been ruined following a painful encounter at the luxury Venetian resort in Las Vegas. 62-year-old Michael Farchi says he was sleeping. Farchi. Yes. Not Farchi, but Farchi.
These names today.
I know. Farchi. Farchi.
Okay.
Says he was sleeping in the Palazzo Tower during the 2023 Christmas holiday. So he spent it with family. That's one of those. When he woke up with a searing pain and realized a scorpion had bitten his testicles.
Ooh, ouch. I don't have testicles, but I have to assume that would hurt.
Oh,
bad.
It hurt. It wasn't a Merry Christmas, if you know what I mean.
Oh, no.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
He felt multiple additional stinging sensations on his hand and groin area, so there wouldn't be a little after self-pleasure, if you know what I mean. According to a lawsuit filed on behalf of Michael Farchi and his wife, Batia. Farchi reports experiencing PTSD, erectile dysfunction, and other lasting effects. His wife is also suing for loss of consortium, claiming that his and his wife's sex life has suffered due to the incident. The couple share a gorgeous $1.2 million home in Agoura Hills, California. One of Farchi's California attorneys, Brian Virag of My Bedbug Lawyer, that's an actual company.
Yikes.
Explained to 8 News Now why they're also filing a claim on behalf of Mr. Farchi's wife. Oh, this will be good. She was alleging that their sexual relationship has suffered significantly since the sting. He told. I didn't know what it was, Farchi said. It felt like a sharp knife or glass stabbing me. Farchi explained that he immediately reached under the covers to find the scorpion and then alerted the hotel staff. In court documents filed on August 27th, the plaintiffs alleged that the hotel breached its duty of care by failing to provide a clean and safe room free of pets, including bed bugs and scorpions. The lawyer provided the 8 News Now with photos of the scorpion gripping onto his underwear. He had time to take photos, Jess. Yes. It really doesn't matter so much how it got there, Virag said. The fact that it was there and they were on notice that there was prior issues of scorpions at the subject property, that's obviously the main point here. Farchi's lawsuit alleges that the Venetian resort was aware of a previous infestation of poisonous scorpions. From our understanding, there was some ongoing construction at that time that this incident happened. Farchi provided 8 News Now with a medical incident report he filed at the Palazzo on December 26th. The report details the incident, including his suite number and the note he wrote to hotel staff. Bitten by scorpion on my groin/testicles. He also added that the hotel didn't take him seriously and even mocked him. Well, it's part of
That's sad.
It's part of the service package. You know, you pay for that. Just saying, you know.
You paid extra for that.
That's right. It could have been worse. You could have had a police sting. Just saying. They were just holding their groin area and laughing about it, he said. It was really embarrassing. Can you imagine that?
I'd be mad too.
Would you like to check out, sir, or can we check you out? Right. He was diagnosed with poisoning scorpion sting by Summerlin Hospital per the lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, Farchi was treated at UCLA Medical Center where doctors diagnosed physical injuries, including erectile dysfunction caused by the scorpion sting. Many effects on my family, my work, everything, Farchi said in an interview with 8 News Now. Farchi is requesting a jury trial to determine damages for his past and future medical expenses, pain and suffering, mental anguish, loss of companionship, and loss of enjoyment of life, as stated in the lawsuit. By the way, Jess, this is what a scorpion on your boxer briefs looks like.
Oh, at least the boxer briefs aren't on his body. That's what I thought was happening.
Right. But just think of it. Right now, he's naked with his little schlong hanging between his legs.
Taking a picture.
That's right. His little
I
cocktail.
think I see it hanging in the corner there.
What, his cocktail wiener?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'm just kidding too. Yeah. By the way, he wears Reebok boxer briefs, just in case you're wondering at home.
Very breathable.
Very breathable. Yes. A statement from the Venetian said, to preserve the privacy of our guests, we're unable to comment on this incident. The resort has protocols for all incidents, and we can confirm they were followed in this incident, including snickering and laughing hysterically. No, I'm kidding. That wasn't in there. The scorpion appears to be the Arizona bark scorpion, the only scorpion in North America considered to be dangerous to humans. The bark scorpion has venom strong enough to cause serious symptoms similar to anaphylaxis and are often found in the Southwest. So there you go. And that concludes Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals.
Hey, that was a good one to end on.
Yeah. Little scorpion bite to your buster. You know what I mean? So with that, Jess, I'll have you know that when I was at Michigan Paracon, I had a few people tell me they're excited for these trips coming up to the Palmer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I hope some of them come.
Oh, they are. They're signed up and ready.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have had quite a few people sign up, so I'm excited. And names I don't recognize. We have so many like return friends that come to our events, so I get really excited when I see them, but also when I see new friends coming.
Yeah. So the one in November, I'll be joining you for the one in November, the 20s, Roaring 20s trip. So
the Roaring 20s, Speakeasy Spirits at the Palmer House. It's going to be so fun. And I just got tickets up for single night event that we're doing at the Manor in St. Paul. I don't know if you've ever been to the Manor, Tim, but it's a super cool private home, private residence that he does as an Airbnb.
Okay.
It was voted as the most mysterious house in St. Paul once upon a time. It's really cool.
Really?
And the guy who owns it is an artist, so he's like done all this cool artsy stuff with it, but it's super haunted. So we're doing like a Halloween event there.
Really?
I just put that up on my website. Yeah, 2
Nice.
nights, Friday and Saturday from 8 to midnight. Like ghost stories around the campfire, hot cocoa s'mores, and a ghost hunt.
All right. So we'll put up the link for Ghost Stories Inc. so you can go sign up for those trips. Also, Jess has 2 books that are available for pre-sale. We have the link up as well on the description of this show. So you can go get those books as well. And we'll have Jess back on the regular show when the books come out so she can talk about those books along with her writing partner. So
That'll be so fun.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tomorrow on the big show, Supernatural News, we will talk about everything and anything that is going on right now in the news. We got some exciting stories for tomorrow, so we'll get into that further in tomorrow's show. Also, what else? I don't think I have anything other than that for today. So that'll do it. That'll do it for today. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News, and we'll tell you tomorrow who's on the program Thursday. We'll just say Extreme Hauntings, Demonic Hauntings, with our special guest, an old friend of ours, on Darkness Radio on Thursday. That's coming up Thursday on the big show. But thank you so much for joining us today. The book, you want to go get it. It's going to make for a good fall read. Go sit out on your porch. Check it out. I've got it right here. Check it out. Jeffrey Deaver and Isabella Maldonado. It's called Fatal Intrusion, a novel. It's a nice thick read. Take a look at that if you're looking on video. Look at that. That's going to keep you going. 429 pages of pulse-pounding action. Check it out. Yeah, check it out. It's available from Thomas and Mercer, and we've got a link to it as well in the description of this program. So check out that novel. It's going to be a good one. For Jessica Freeberg, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for listening and watching today. We will see you tomorrow for Darkness Radio. Thank you for watching and listening to True Crime Tuesday.